So look at the bylaw changes. If you have any questions, please come to me and we can discuss it. But they're pretty simple stuff. The first one we have, are we up and running yet there, Miss Lydia? Oh, good job. Unfortunately, Andy has forced Tricia to go back to California, so she's on a plane right now, and that's our computer guru. Well, that doesn't really matter. We're talking about ABC here, buddy. So, with that said, our first bylaw change is going to be offered up by, actually, I'll tell you guys. John, where's John? Is he around? Mr. English?
Right behind.
Oh, shit, okay. And actually, listen, he's from New Hampshire, and he's the chairman of the what the hell is it called again? Charitable Fund. The Charitable Fund. And guys, we gave away $22,000 this year, which is just amazing. So it's amazing what he does. And I tell you, I'll be driving. He calls me anytime, day and night. But after Wednesday, you can't. So here we go.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Get my heart rate down after that little exchange. I felt like I should get my ref shirt. As many of you that I've met over the last 5 years, my 5th convention, I feel like I still haven't met a lot of you. So if you just indulge me for 1 second, I'd just like to introduce myself a little bit. John English, from New Hampshire. I've run a martial arts school for over 25 years. I'm an owner. I'm into real estate developing as well. I flip houses, which is a dirty word. I like to call myself a renovator, not a flipper. And I also am president of my condo association. I've been doing that for 5 years. So I feel like I've been able to bring a lot of gifts to the table here. It's been an absolute honor to come and do this. I feel like it's one way I get to give back to a martial art that's given me so much in my life. I've been married 17 years. My wife is super patient with me and gracious. And I came late to the party, decided at 40 to have my first kid, and like fighting, realized it's a young man's game. And so Elijah's 3.5, and he's incredible. I volunteer for New Hampshire. We have a very, very small commission up there. We average anywhere from 8 to 12 shows a year, about 4 MMA, 7 or 8 boxing. Bobby Stephen, I believe, and anyone here that wants to correct me, please do, is probably one of the longest active commissioners in the country. He was nominated in 1980, and he is still the commissioner of New Hampshire. He's a great man, former lawyer. But they don't really pay. It's not a salaried position. We have 0 budget in New Hampshire, and he gets $100 a show. So it's a $1,200 a year job with a lot of time and effort put into it. Thus, no one wants it. When MMA came on the scene in New Hampshire, we started regulating in 2007. Bobby was a boxing guy, and he was able to network with people that understood MMA, and we were able to start making sure things were run properly, safely, and again, that's how I got involved, and I help out as a volunteer. So each year that I come down here, Bobby writes me a proxy to represent the state, to help with, continuing to help New Hampshire and the other states around us. So with that being all said, what I've been doing over the last year is looking at the charity, looking at the bylaws. Being a president of an association, I've unfortunately learned a lot about bylaws. And you have to live and die by your bylaws. It protects the body. It protects all of the energy, all of the finances, all of the time that we all put into this, and make sure people are doing things properly. So one of the first things that we figured out is, obviously 2 years ago, we really started ramping up the charity. In the Ali Act, it federally says that we have to have a pension. In that, though, however, the language does say a boxer's pension and trust fund. I got to speak with Pat English on the phone back in February. We were having a meeting, and we talked about this. And even though it's in the Ali Act, as a body, we should make sure that we are putting combat sports, because we are giving gifts to just more than boxers. We're giving gifts to kickboxers, to MMA fighters. We're giving gifts to everyone. And so that's one of the things that I'm looking for the body to approve, is to make sure that we take out a boxer's pension and trust fund and put language in there that's going to make sure that when we do give funds to other athletes, as a body, we're in compliance with that. As far as the monthly calls, we do that. We try to meet every once a month, every other month, depending on people's schedules. We have about 8 people on the committee. Meetings, it talks about meetings, parliamentary procedures. And here's what's happening. every single committee of the ABC do their meetings, and then they vote. For example, rules and regs. Something passed 12-0. However, it's not ratified until we come here as a body and the body approves it. With the charity, we're in a unique situation because we're getting applications from athletes for help all throughout the year. Technically speaking, we should be only giving gifts out after the body ratifies and approves that. However, the issue that we're having, we have fighters that need money now. So what we've been doing is an application comes in, the committee reviews it, and then we approve it. And then if we approve it, the check is sent out. I want to make sure moving forward, transparency is there in that this committee doesn't get to do this and the others don't. And so what I'm proposing is that we allow the Retired Fighter Fund Committee to approve applications so we can gift money throughout the year. Come annually, you guys will have complete access to all of that financials. We will provide you with reports to show you who got what, and there'll be a level of transparency there. So that's what I'm going to be proposing for tomorrow. Does anyone have any questions for me so far? Any concerns? Do we have the language up there? I don't believe so. Joe wrote the language. Do you want to read the language, Joe, that we're proposing? You know, I got to say, you know, this has been a team effort. It absolutely is a team effort. I mean, I feel like I'm just a conductor, but you know, we have. John McCarthy did a PSA. I'm going to be giving in the afternoon. I'll show you what we've been doing this year. We have a social media PSA. We have networked with corporations. We have our first corporate sponsor, which you'll be getting a presentation from them where they're going to start putting a donation towards this. But it's all of us. I mean, you guys, casino night is tonight. I mean, we raised a lot of money that helped a lot of fighters this year. And I'll be able to share that during my presentation. So, I mean, when he says I've done a lot, I haven't done anything. I'm just waving the wand. And you guys are all playing the instrument. So I personally want to thank all of you for that. Joe has that language.
We've put it up here on the big screen. Anybody who wants to come around and take a picture of it. As you probably all know, in the bylaws, we have to wait a certain period of time before we can vote on a bylaw change, and everybody has to be able to see it in writing. So this is the actual changes. John has laid it out with his PowerPoint and done a good job of explaining why we need the changes. The two changes are pretty simple. The first one is in our bylaw 6.1, and the new bylaw would read, there shall be the following permanent standing committees: medical, legal, rulemaking, training and education, disciplinary, and the change would be to Retired Fighters Charity. And that's how it's been branded. That's how we've moved forward on what we've been calling the formerly known as Boxers Pension and Trust Fund. So the new language would be called the Retired Fighters Charity, and that fits in line with how the committee has branded this. So it'd be the Retired Fighters Charity Committee. I like Retired Fighters Fund Committee. I like to use the word fund better, but we've already done quite a bit of branding and moved on with RFC. And then in Rule 7.1, and this in my opinion is more of just a clarification, getting on with what John was talking about, but it would add the language that's bold and underlined there, and it would simply add the language, and I'll read it slowly and carefully. Retired Fighter Charity Committee shall be allowed to distribute funds throughout the year per parliamentary procedures, which are referenced elsewhere in the bylaws, consistent with these bylaws. And so again, that would get to the point where it just clarifies and makes sure that everything is legitimate when we're doing, when we are doing distributions throughout the years, and that we've covered ourselves. So those are the only two changes that after we did a pretty intensive and thorough review, and again, most of that was John. John should get as much as he wants to be humble and not take a lot of credit here. This is one of the most active committees in the ABC, and that also the youngest, and this is because of leadership from John, and also the great work from the other people on the committee. So those are the proposed changes for the bylaws. I think it's scheduled to come up for motion and a vote tomorrow after we've waited at least 24 hours. Are there any questions about the specific language before we let John finish up on this?
John's done. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, this is also, I believe, going to get proposed tomorrow. And this is the new language that's been added. It'll need to be properly moved and seconded tomorrow. The proposal, just to be clear, this isn't my proposal. I'm just reading it and making sure everybody understands what it is.
My proposal.
It's going to be President Mazzuli's proposal tomorrow. And right now we have a section on dues. That's what this addresses. And I'm going to start down in the middle of the paragraph and read it. Dues must be paid in full by a member in order for that member to be considered as a voting member in good standing. And then it would add the comma and add the following phrase, and dues must be current for at least 3 years in order to run for office. That will be also a proposal. If anybody would like to take a snapshot of it or get a better look at this so you can read it, but that's what the proposal is that will be on the floor tomorrow as a change in the bylaw. And again, we have to give a certain amount of time for everybody to review this and go over it, have a chance to talk about it, and have some discussions about it before we make any permanent changes to the bylaw. But that will be a proposal tomorrow.